Greetings, Simon Rain here, Link's Armansade. I'm going to do a bit of a follow-up to our last video. We now have sword in hand after having chosen our weapon. So we're going to talk very briefly about how to move, how to hold the thing, and maybe go through a couple of the basics just to get you started. So, first up, you can absolutely pick up the sword and just start swinging around, holding it however so much you like. It's not the biggest of deals. However, just as there is a correct way to do everything, there's a correct, ideal way to hold a sword. So, we take our palm, we look at where the joint of our finger is, trace that down through basically as much space as you possibly can to get to this nice, meaty chunk of muscle right here. That's where we want to align our swords. I'll get closer, step into the shade, so you can see that a little better. So, right there to there. And just wrap your hand around it. The other hand wraps around similarly. It's not as big a deal with the rear hand as it is with the dominant hand, in this case, my right hand. Thumb is in line with the flat of the blade. This will help some of our cuts, and also just kind of keeps everything away from the guard itself. It is common in later period sources to see the finger over the crossguard like so. You can do that with a longsword. That will assist and keep the grip. However, there's the obvious risk of getting your finger chopped off. I like my fingers. How about you? So, we have that grip. The idea, big part of the idea, is to have that muscle able to push against the handle of the sword. It's exactly the same kind of idea as when we are doing our unarmed work, when we extend out with the hand in our posta longa, cover the guards later. We're pushing with that part of the hand. This can be either a push, a shove. I like using it as kind of a stop. If someone's walking toward me, just driving that in there. It can also be a strike. Hit someone upside the jaw with it. Very nasty if done properly. Same idea with the sword. When we push against someone else's blade, that's the area of our hand that is going to give us the most control and the most strength. So we want to use it. So, we have the sword up. Let's start down, work our way back up the body. So feet, we can start with them sort of shoulder width apart, maybe very slightly more. And for now, because my sword is going to be on the right side of my body, I'm going to take my right foot and step backwards into a nice, sort of comfy, low martial stance. Our front toe should always universally, in a forward weighted stance, be pointing forward. Because of my kung fu background, sometimes my toe likes to track in a little bit. That's okay with longsword. Be very careful though, is if we're taking any exaggerated, put myself sideways, long steps, that knee tracks over the toe. I have seen far too many times people land sort of pigeon-footed, start tracking that knee out over nothing, and it is going to be horrendously unpleasant for your knees in the long run. We like our knees, we like our hands, we like joints, bodies, everything. We want to be in fighting shape, which means we're not going to damage ourselves, and we're not going to let the other guy damage us either. We are going to stay safe. So, we're in that nice wide stance. This is our forward weighted stance. We also have a rear weighted stance. The simplest, without explanation, way of getting there is to start facing that way and just turn our heels, still looking in that same direction for our nice rear-weighted stance. Some people have a hard time getting this though. So, I am the doctor and this is my spoon. We start in our stance with our arms not quite fully 180 degrees, bit of a relaxed on the other side. If we just simply take a look over that shoulder, hey look, we're in the rear weighted stance on this side. forward weighted stance on this side. Easy enough, right? We can rotate between the two. I find it helps if you keep the arms out. Directing forward stance, directing forward stance. Forward, forward. We can do it then without turning our heads. Getting it thusly. Yeah? Simple, simple. Sometimes. More complicated than it often seems. So, those are our two stances that we need to worry about. I'll cover guards another time, but for now, let's just start moving with the sword. We have a couple of different ways of stepping. We can take an advancing step or a retreating step. Always, always, always expand out, then contract. Front foot leads, back foot comes in. Front foot leads, back foot comes in. Easiest way to remember this, whichever way you're moving, that's which foot goes first. I'm going forward, my forward foot goes. Going backwards, my back foot goes. I'm moving to the right, my right foot goes. I'm moving to the left, left foot goes. Again, pretty simple. So, we also have our passing step. With the passing step, we're going to start adding in a cut. We're going to start with just our simple downward fendente cut. Again, not going to worry too much about the exact mechanics of it. I will break that down in agonizing detail another time. But for now, we simply start. As we step, we cut down, bring the sword right around to our other shoulder. Down and around. Down and around. I'm adding in the reverse step at the end of each of those things. Build up to it. We can just do it entirely from forward step. And I'm only going back and forth to basically maintain framing. There's absolutely no reason why I can't keep advancing or keep retreating. So, when we deliver this cut, quick note on sort of posture and how we move. We're not bringing our sword in a big arcing. We're bringing it forward. The sword tip tilts forward, comes out, bringing our body behind it. When we're delivering a cut with fluidity, we should always aim when the cut ends. That's when our foot stops moving. And then just recovering it to the other shoulder as a separate motion. Extend out, stop it halfway, recover. Out, recover. Full cut, foot stops as the sword reaches its natural finishing point of the cut, simply recovering from there. Out and back. Out and back. With the reverse. From the other side. So, that's how to cut, how to step, how to hold the sword. One important note, touched on it briefly already, make sure the sword leads the action. George Silver refers to it as a true time action, where the sword leads before the feet. This is extremely, extremely important. Anything you do, whether it's with the sword, the dagger, or even with your hands, where your hands are the weapon leads. And seriously, cursed with that plane every time I try to make a video, I swear. So, the reason for this is very, very simple. The sword is also our shield. The sword is what protects us, as well as offending the other guy. So, if the sword leads, then we are still defending ourselves as we make the motion. If our body leads, that leaves us open to basically an attack of opportunity from the opponent. All they have to do is basically extend their sword out, stab us in the face. And we don't like that. So our sword comes out first, covers, and then proceeds to attack. I have two very simple rules for sword fighting. Rule 1, don't get hit. Rule 2, hit the other guy. Always in that order. I always like to ask new students, and I think pretty much every single person I've ever taught, I've asked this question: how do you win a fight? Take a minute, think about that. How do you win a fight? Surprisingly often, or maybe not surprisingly, depending on how you think of it, the most common answer I get is you win the other fight by beating the other guy. No, that's not how it works. If that's the case, especially when you're dealing with something like a sword, I stab him, he stabs me, we both win, right? No, that's not how it works. You win by being the guy to go home safe. You win by being the guy to not be stabbed. We don't like being stabbed. Yes? Yes. So, once again, we're in our stance, feet nice and wide apart. Very, very important. Extend out. Deliver the cut. If we're extending just out to posta longa, that's when our foot lands. We time the sword and the hand together. Extend all the way down, bring it up. So, I think that's relatively simple enough. Something I cannot stress enough is to practice, practice, practice. Pick up a sword, start swinging it around. Every so often, just freeze. What are your feet doing? Look down. Make sure front toe pointed off that way, back toe either at that angle, pointed sort of slightly behind me or slightly in front of me. The difference is hip alignment. Again, we'll cover that later. Legs nice and bent. It's very, very common to see new people kind of just standing normally, because this frankly takes a little bit of strength in the arms, or strength in the legs. I get body parts confused a lot. Don't mind me. So, practice, practice, practice. I like standing like this when I'm working around in the kitchen doing dishes or anything like this. Or just kind of walking around my house, or hell, walking down the street. I'll be... I'm reasonably certain my neighbors think I'm a little strange, but that's okay. Anyway, I think that's about all we need to talk about today. Thank you for your time, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye from Lynx Armatare.